Today we're going to talk about the Rolex Submariner non-date, reference number 14060M. This is a diving wristwatch with a water resistance rating of 300 meters or 1,000 feet. And you can see that right on the dial there. Okay. The case and bracelet are crafted from 904L steel, which I believe only Rolex uses. The main selling point of this steel is that it offers a greater degree of resistance from corrosion from acids. So I believe that's what's special about it. Now the bracelet, these links here are hollow links. They're not solid. We'll talk a little bit about this later. Let me just show you how it folds over. That's the fold over clasp. And there's another safety clasp right here to make it more secure. The bezel is a unidirectional 120 click bezel. This is what I mean by click. Now, if I rotate it from here all the way back to here, it should click 120 times, which it does. And I actually tried this out, and it does. It's nice and smooth and very easy to operate and grip. As you can see, there are minute markers on this aluminum bezel, which is used to measure elapsed time. The newer Rolex subs have ceramic bezels. Now, the hands and dial, the hands and the indices rather, are ringed with white gold and filled with the superluminova luminous material, and so is the dot here. The crown is a screw-down trip-lock crown. You see those three dots there? That means it's a trip-lock crown. The other Rolexes, the non-diving Rolexes, sports a twin-lock crown. So the water resistance is rated a little bit lower, 100 meters, instead of 300 meters. The crystal is a flat sapphire crystal, so very, very resistant to scratches. Okay. The movement is caliber 3130, which differs from the previous movement, which I believe was caliber 3000. The three differences being that caliber 3130 uses a balance bridge instead of a balance cock to anchor down the balance wheel, and that offers a greater degree of stability. It also has a Breguet overcoil, unlike the previous one, which I believe had a flat overcoil. And finally, the reversers have been updated in such a way to make winding more efficient. Now, the power reserve on this watch is approximately 50 hours. So it's a good amount of power reserve. You could leave it on your nightstand for 2 nights and it'll probably still work. Let's talk a little bit about what I believe are some of the slightly weaker points of this watch. Ideally, the lume should be more, the indices should be a little bit bigger, and the lume should be a little bit better. I think if I were a diver, which I'm not, I'd probably appreciate more legibility under slightly murkier water conditions or underwater. And this has been corrected for or adjusted for in the newer Rolexes, which sport these so-called maxi dials that have bigger hands and bigger indices. And I think the superluminova is a little bit brighter, I think. I also want to point out, if I failed to point out earlier, there's superluminova here too on this bezel dot here. Now let's talk about the bracelet. Everyone loves talking about this bracelet. These links are stamped metal. They're not solid. Now this bracelet has been referred to as being flimsy, tinny, cheap. Whatever non-complimentary term you've heard about the bracelet, it's probably been used. Personally, it would be nice if the bracelet had solid links, which the newer Rolexes do. But I think it does the job. It does the job, and it keeps the weight of the watch down. I don't think there are a lot of stories about the bracelet breaking. I mean, I think you'd have to subject to tremendous abuse for these things to kind of break off. So this doesn't bother me too much, but I figure it's something I should mention if I'm going to do a review on Rolex. What else? The sapphire crystal. It'd be great if they domed this a little bit. I think it would give it more of a vintage look. And also, it won't white out under certain conditions. By white out, I mean that on a flat sapphire crystal, if you hold it just the right way in the light at a certain angle, usually something like this, the whole thing will be white color. You can't see at all. And I believe a domed sapphire crystal will eliminate that to some extent. Overall, I love this watch. I think the size is perfectly appropriate. It's not gigantic. There seems to be an unfortunate trend these days where watches are built very, very large. And I don't think it's necessary unless you have huge wrists. So this is more than adequate. I think it looks attractive on most people, men and women alike. And well, you know, it's a well-proportioned watch. What else? I like the fact that this lug width is 20 millimeters. If you want to mix it up a little bit and put this on a G10 strap or a nylon strap, or any other strap, you have a lot of choices out there. It doesn't have any, you know, it's not a strange lug width like, let's say, a 19 or a 21, which I believe is on the Rolex Deep Sea. So it's a very traditional watch. I mean, I think this watch, along with the Blancpain 50 Phantoms, I mean, this is really the mother, or if you include the Blancpain 50 Phantom, the mothers of all modern diving wristwatches. A lot of the things that are commonly found in wristwatches these days that we so-called take for granted, I mean, it's either been invented by Rolex or perfected by Rolex. This whole business with the screw-down crown, all these high water resistances, and the automatic winding movement. I mean, a lot of these things have been perfected by Rolex. So, you know, and I guess the one final thing I want to talk about is Rolex's design philosophy. They tend not to change for the sake of changing. What they do is they make little upgrades every so often. Now, it drives some people crazy, and for others like me, I tend to appreciate that. I don't think you should change for the sake of changing. Think of this as a great white shark. It's a perfect entity that's been perfected after like a gazillion years of evolution. So that I appreciate. I mean, with the exception of those very minor things I mentioned, I love this watch. It has a minimal of writing on the dial. It doesn't say superlative chronometer officially certified, but it does keep time to +3 seconds a day, which I think it's great. It's perfectly fine. Also, I chose this version of the Submariner over the one with the date at 3 because I think it's a little bit more symmetrical, more balanced. The date function is definitely useful. Half the time I forget what the date is, but with this I opted over a non-date model. The bezel insert. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is not ceramic, it's aluminum. There's a whole big thing now with everybody coming out with ceramic bezels. Ceramic bezel looks a little nicer, it's a little bit more lustrous to the feel. Definitely a little bit higher class feeling, if you will, and definitely less likely to scratch up. But then again, you factor in the cost of replacing that bezel when it cracks. I take the aluminum bezel over the ceramic every time. I'm trying to keep these reviews as conversational as possible. I want to feel like we're at a Starbucks just hanging out and talking about watches. A couple guys hanging out and talking about watches. I don't want to make it too formal. Probably left out some things here and there, but I try to rehearse this as little as possible. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this review. And if you already own this watch, I hope you have a greater appreciation of it. If you're looking for your first dive watch and you want one of the greats, I would strongly recommend this one. Once again, that's the Rolex Submariner non-date 14060M. It's discontinued, but you could probably find some new old stock if you're lucky. Okay? Have a good one, and I'll see you at my next watch review. Hope you've enjoyed it. Signing off now.